thing or a Facebook thing at the moment.
Or maybe it's the multi-stream thing.
Oh my god, if it's the multi-stream thing again, I'm going to punch.
Yep, it's the multi-stream.
That
It's
is
the multi-stream.
why.
But now that we're just doing this, we'll probably see the stream updates.
True. What we'll have to do is we'll have to say for tonight's stream, join us on YouTube because Facebook's not working. So that's what we'll do.
Facebook sucks. That's right. Take that, Zuckerberg.
Oh my god. Okay. I'll just see. Hey everyone. Tonight, for whatever reason, we are not able to stream to Facebook. But we are still live. Join us on YouTube as we talk about intimacy and
Commencement.
Intimacy
And consecration.
Wait, what?
Consummation.
Wait, that's getting worse. We're not
Intimacy. We're talking about intimacy and consummation.
Wait.
There's a song that goes along with that, and it goes something like, "Let's talk about sex, baby. Let's talk about you and me."
Wait.
That is our value proposition for the evening.
Oh, okay. Wow. I'm just
kidding, folks. I'm just kidding.
I'm gonna make some posts while you're making your jokes.
I need to share this though. I gotta share it to the Book of Faces.
That is true. I didn't think about that, but you're correct. Go to me and share now publicly. Cool. Okay, cool. So that's been done. So this is going to be the first time we're streaming to exclusively YouTube, and hopefully the last time we do that, but we'll see. There's a first and there's a last for everything. I'll give you a second to type in whatever you're typing, and then I'll go. But hey, most likely, because we're just streaming to one place, when people type to us, it should all show up rather than just only things from Facebook. That's what I'm hoping. And if it doesn't show up, then that means there's something specifically wrong with getting chat from YouTube. And so that'd be
there's poop.
That won't show up though until we move from this part here. Well, hello everybody, and welcome to Thought Raid, a show where we take on your thoughts and find better ways of thinking about them. I'm Brandon Brown, owner of United Gamers Nations and a lay counselor, and gathered with me today is the wonderful Tim Denach of Break the Meta LLC. And the reason why I had to pause and think for a second was because I was going to say welcome to YouTube, but we're not YouTube, we're just streaming to YouTube. I was like, wait! That's not right. Have you ever, Tim, in all of your years of working in GameStop, answered the phone and accidentally put in a different like thank you for calling Bounce You. This is wait, this is not Bounce You.
Hey, this is Tim. and the customer's like, what?
I did that once though when I was working in GameStop. My first official job was at Bounce You. So for whatever reason, I never make the mistake in the beginning. I make it midway through after you think I would have it down pat. And so we're halfway into my time at GameStop, and I answer the phone. Thank you for calling Bounce You. This is wait. This is not Bounce You. This is so apparently it is YouTube that's the issue because. Nothing you're posting.
YouTube.
Yeah.
Zuckerberg.
Wait. Let's see. I went all chat, not just most top chat visible. And participants toggle timestamps. I don't know. We've been having an issue that whatever is posted into YouTube does not show up on this, and I don't know what the problem is. So if you're watching this and you've worked with
It won't
Streamlabs,
show up here.
yes, yes, exactly. If you've worked with Streamlabs before and you've encountered this issue where your YouTube chat is not showing up in the little text bubbles things, let us know what the solution is, because I have been dealing with that for like the past, I don't know, 5 streams. Facebook's fine. YouTube just refuses to show up, and I'm confused as all heck. So, anyways, welcome to tonight's stream, where tonight we're talking about intimacy and commitment. And this was a personal requestment for me because of just trying to navigate how much you share with someone that you just met, or someone that you've known for a while, for whatever reason, because I was raised to be an honest individual. I could be honest to a fault, and I could share too much with someone that I just met. I'm not bad at that. Like, I don't necessarily always make those mistakes, but I think it'd be great to have just a little bit more clarity on the topic of when you meet someone and you want to break the ice and you want to develop a friendship, but you don't want to scare the person away. What is that nice balance between, intimately revealing parts of yourself for the sake of being authentic, and not because you don't have that level of commitment with a person to need to or want to share those details of your life with that person. So if you're like me and you also are really great at being authentic and open and honest, but not quite sure what too much is to the person you just met or whatever, this is what we'll be talking about in today's stream. So this is your particular week to kind of lead the topic, Tim. So I'm going to kick this one over to you and put you front and center on the screen. So get ready.
Right. Enjoy this beautiful face.
Here it comes.
Honestly, I don't even know where to start with this. The whole idea of relationships has been really hard for me for the longest time because I didn't really know how to navigate them.
Mm-hmm.
I treated all my relationships the same, and unfortunately I treated them all with a sense of pride and insecurity. I'm insecurity with my parents, my friends, romantic relationships.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't until a couple years ago that I started learning that intimacy and commitment have to have equal parts in a relationship. When they're out of whack, things kind of, they just go crazy.
Yeah.
And then as I was navigating that, I was trying, and like we were talking about earlier, I was seeking healthy relationships to be a part of. And I was trying to decide who was going to fill those intimate roles in my life. Thanks, Jared. Oh, it's Tails. Woo! What's up, Tails? It works.
Because it's just straight YouTube this time. That's why.
Yeah, I'm okay with that. But, like in trying to discover all these relationships and how to navigate them, I was really confused that some of them would work and some of them wouldn't. And in the circle of friends that we had, the people were healthy people, or at least aspiring towards being healthy.
Right.
And how when you see somebody and they're like friends with everybody.
Yes.
And then you start realizing that there are some people they have to force themselves to be more intentional with than others. And then there are patterns, there's certain things that they would do only with those people because it was like their go-to way of breaking down the wall and saying, okay, well, I want you to feel included. I want you to feel seen. So here's what I do with those types of people.
Yeah.
And then, when I was navigating one of those relationships, I just realized that I was one of those, I wasn't one of the inner circle people with this specific person.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that I had more value in their life than I actually did. And I was really confused by that. And I was kind of hurt by it. And for a while I was upset with the person. I was like, it's almost like being led on in a relationship.
Yeah.
And for a while I blamed them, but then I took a step back and I was like, they can't be everything to everybody. Why am I expecting so much from them?
Right.
Why would they give me a high level of intimacy when they can only dedicate themselves to a low level of commitment?
Yeah.
And I feel like a lot of relationships break down because they expect more intimacy than they put the work in on both sides to earn. So I'm really excited about this topic tonight because I feel like when I started to actually understand it and get it and see it and be honest about what it is, that's when I started having more confidence in relationships. And honestly, it's when I started valuing myself more in all of my relationships, because I used to strive thinking, I have to be everybody to everybody, everything to everybody. I have to make sure everybody's happy. I have to make sure everybody's got something to do. I have to make sure everybody feels seen. I have to make sure that everybody's invited to everything, or else my quantity of friends is going to crumble. And I quantified my perception of success in relationship by how many acquaintances I had. So that's kind of the foundation for tonight. But if you want to bring me back onto screen with you, so I'm not full mug, I just want to quickly open this up to you, Brandon, too, and any of you that are watching at any time through tonight. If you have something you want to add, or a comment, or a quick story, or if we've missed something, or if you feel like we've misrepresented something, please point it out to us. Make a comment, and if you're watching this in the future, if you're watching an edited live stream, down below in the comments,
yes.
And feel free to have a discussion.
And very specifically, if at any point you guys want to kind of join in with the conversation that Tim and I are having, we have a Discord link posted below that sends you straight to our overflow channel on our Discord server. If you have like any kind of question, and you want to make sure that you have like a specific question in mind when we pull you up, but if you want to join in with a particular question, something we might not have covered well, or something you want to talk about, you can hit that link down below. It's good for 12 hours, and you can join in on the overflow channel. We'll pull you up when we're ready, but I just want to kind of set the stage with that and just let you know that that is an option for tonight's stream. So just want to put that out there.
Okay, so as we always do things, I like to make sure that everybody understands exactly what we're talking about when we say something. And there's two terms, intimacy and commitment, that we're going to be talking about tonight. Hello, Stormy.
Hello.
So intimacy and commitment, those are two really unique terms, and they're really scary because when somebody, especially if you go to any social magazine like Cosmopolitan, Maxim, dating websites, or whatever, the idea of commitment, it's almost stereotypical that guys are afraid of commitment, and then intimacy, that also scares people because the idea that you can be intimate with somebody, and I don't mean specifically sexually intimate. I'm talking about like just being known and allowing yourself to be vulnerable so somebody sees who you are. That's really scary because you don't know who you can trust with that. So just to clean it up, I want to define what these two things are. You should totally make him tell him that Tim said.
Bring in Void.
I'm just kidding. Kind of. So, intimacy. The dictionary defines intimacy as close familiarity or friendship, closeness.
Interesting.
Similarly, a private or cozy atmosphere, an intimate atmosphere, an intimate act, especially sexual intercourse. And the whole, I guess to sum it up, it's a safe place, right? It's a safe place to be known, relax, and not have walls up. I think when you're walking through a store, I think it's really weird when you walk through the department and it says intimates. You know what I'm talking about? Where it's like PJs and stuff. And I think that's kind of interesting because like you wear them when you are the most vulnerable. You're alone, asleep. You're about to have sex with somebody. You're in your intimates. You're about to be fully exposed and fully vulnerable.
I would say.
Were you gonna say something?
Yeah, I was gonna say another good definition. I think even better for intimacy would be vulnerability, because that would be where you are most vulnerable. Like it is beyond multiple layers of defense to what is most closest to you. So I feel like an even better word for intimacy, at least based off the descriptions you gave me from the dictionary, I think maybe sits closer to the word vulnerable. I think personally.
Yeah.
Indeed, you
Hello,
have
Zach.
been.
You have been summoned, void, from the void by
The
the
void.
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 So the second term is commitment, and the way the dictionary defines it is the state of or quality of being dedicated to a cause, activity, etc., a pledge or undertaking or an engagement or obligation that restricts freedom of action. And I think that's kind of interesting because when you think about commitment, if you think about the different types of commitments in your life, you open up your calendar or your agenda, and there's things that you have said that you're going to do, so that's considered a commitment. This ring that I'm wearing, that symbolizes a commitment that I've made. It's choice, right? If you commit something to someone, or if you commit something to a purpose, basically you're giving that to them, right? And the cool thing about commitment is it's something that you have to choose. If commitment is not something that you've chosen, that is manipulation, and that's not healthy. But tonight we want to talk about commitment, which is an action of loyalty or an action of or quality of being dedicated to a cause, activity, person, place, or thing by choice. Right. So intimacy and commitment, that's the basis for our talk tonight. And why are we talking about this? Brandon, why do you think we're talking about this?
Well, like I mentioned earlier, the reason why I requested this particular topic is just because sometimes I have a hard time navigating how much I should be intimate with individual people. And again, that's more so on the side of emotional intimacy, not necessarily, obviously, sexual intimacy. But I'm talking about, like, when I meet people, like, how much of myself am I going to reveal to them in order to form deeper bonds with them and to make sure that they feel like I'm being authentic and I'm, there for them, and I'm not just like, hey, how is the weather? The weather is nice today. Did you enjoy your day? Good, I'm glad. What kind of plans do you have? Like all those things, for whatever reason, those kind of things come at the end of my conversation rather than the beginning of my conversation. But the problem is that sometimes I go too deep, become too vulnerable, and then I think what ends up happening is either one, you scare people away, or two, then you end up making someone feel like I'm really connected and dedicated to you, when in reality, I don't have the time or energy to be able to bring another person that close to my life. I've really just shared this part of my life so that way I'm leading the way in authenticity, not necessarily because I'm looking to add you into my list of close friends,
Yeah.
So I think that's the main reason why I specifically wanted to have a conversation like this, to kind of get a better perspective so that way I'm not pushing people away unnecessarily or bringing them in when I don't have the space to bring them in, and then they get hurt because I can't give them the level of commitment based off of the level of intimacy I've thrown at them.
Yeah. I was talking to somebody about this the other day, and I feel like until you put words behind it, you can feel it, and you can feel that something's wrong in your relationships and how you're going about life and how you view things, but you don't really know what it is. It's kind of like when a baby's hungry. What's up, Luis?
Hey.
It's like when you're a baby and you're hungry, you don't know how to articulate it, so you just cry. And a lot of people do that when it comes to relationships or even work or things they're doing with their life, because they realize that they're way too committed without enough intimacy as a reward, because intimacy is a reward of being committed, right?
Right.
Or they have way too much intimacy, or they're giving way too much intimacy and there's no commitment, and it feels like, well, I don't, this hasn't even been earned. I think about one night stands is that it's like you're giving away something that requires, typically, and this is my personal opinion, sex should require a very high level of commitment, because that's a big part of you. That's a big part of who you are, especially when somebody gets to see, your downstairs mix up, they get to see you without your clothes. They get to see you when you're vulnerable, and you don't just do that with everybody. Of course, a lot of people will, that's controversial, because a lot of people just want to have sex, but if you think about the and I don't want to stereotype anybody, but if you think about the frame of mind by which you pursue sex without commitment, it's usually trying to fill a void of something that you don't have. Or, you just want to feel good, but you don't want to put in the time and effort it takes to earn that. And I think of countless friends that I've had, countless people that I've known, countless people that I see on social media, countless people that I've consulted before, and almost in almost every single situation, I would hazard to say in all of them, when somebody has had sex without a basis of relationship behind it and commitment behind it, it has always left one side or the other feeling like they're not valued, not appreciated, and it's always this ambiguity, like, what do I actually mean to you? The whole term "hit it and quit it just completely devalues and dehumanizes a person. If I was a girl, for instance, and I knew that a guy was just being sweet to me and was just going out with me, and he just wanted to get laid, he wanted to hit it and quit it, not, I gave myself to him and then the next day he ghosts me. It's like, I just bore everything to this person, and now they're gone because they don't really see my value. They just took something from me. I didn't get to give that truly. But it's that space of ambiguity when it comes to relationships, because in a relationship, you are supposed to be known. The other person is supposed to reveal themselves to you too, but that's supposed to happen evenly in step with how much they're committed.
Right.
So why are we talking about this? I think it's because a lot of people are hurting and they don't really understand why. Because that's how I was for the longest time. Yeah. Well, would you agree, or is there anything you would add to that?
Well, I think also to add to that, I feel like, when you have level of intimacy and commitment out of whack, it ultimately would destroy one or the other or both in the end. So, like, if you're really intimate with someone, but you're not having enough commitment with them, it will destroy any desire to be committed because you're afraid. Like, it's weird. It's like you're being physically intimate with a person, but if you're not committed to them, there are so many other layers of intimacy that are not being thrown in there with the rest of them, because certain layers of intimacy require certain degrees of commitment. So for you, for someone who is physically intimate with somebody but not committed to them, they're not typically going to be emotionally intimate with that person, because if they begin, because they probably recognize, if I begin to share with them the dark sides of myself, the emotional aspects of myself, that was going to require more commitment. So commitment gets squashed into the ground and has no basis to grow, and therefore that level of intimacy never shows up, because then it's like you just intricately know that for me to be able to share that, I have to be more committed than I'm willing to be. And so in the end, I think also intimacy loses out, because it's like, to be able to continue to soar to sustain higher levels of intimacy, more commitment must be there to the person. And I feel like starting out physically intimate before also sharing other forms of intimacy first, I feel like it's unstable grounds to build a relationship out of anyways. Like, there has to be, I feel like, for a relationship to be solid without any kind of bumps in the road later on, not to say you can avoid them all, because that's not what I'm saying, but at least when it comes to building proper trust, lasting trust is going to carry the relationship throughout long years. I feel like before you give yourself away physically, first, you want to build up commitment to that person and slowly begin to reveal intimate details about who you are, see how they handle that, and then as the level of commitment and the level of intimacy are matching, then go on finally and, like, okay, here is all of me, rather than just, let me just throw the baseline who I am and cheapen my entire human body, to just an experience. I don't know, it just dismantles, probably actually not just one or the other, but both intimacy and commitment, and just makes it more of an experience rather than a relationship. But that's just thinking of more so like the relationship aspect rather than the emotional of, like, a friendship, for instance, or stuff of that nature, which was going to be more my focus, but this is still just as important, I feel.
Yeah, well, Luis just said what sucks about intimacy is it's a double-edged sword, and I agree completely
Yeah.
because even if we dial it back, let's stop talking about sex for a second. Let's
Yeah.
stop talking about the intimate physical stuff, and let's do something a little bit less severe. Not severe. I don't know if that's the term, but let's say we're doing a project together. Like I'm just working outside, right, and I'm doing something that's not really that fun, and a friend says, "Oh yeah, let's I'll help you with that. Let's come on over." And then they come over here and they realize, "Hey, I don't want to do this," and they're just like sitting there on their phone while I'm digging and stuff. It's like we both committed to doing this. I'm doing my part. You're not doing your part. What the heck? And if there's not that clear definition of understanding that we're both committed, we both don't get the intimacy. Like one thing that really irritates, like in school, when you're doing a project, you have a group project, everybody has their own little piece of it, right? And then you go home, you work on it, or if you're like me, you wait till the last minute, do it the night before, and then you finally take it to school the next day and you're doing your presentation. And then you get to see what the other people have done in the project. There's always that one person that did not do their part. And everybody's grade drops because of it. Or if you get a fantastic grade, you've put in all this time and effort. They have not, they got the same grade. There's always going to be some feeling of,
the heck?
You see this guy? What the? And that really degrades trust.
Yeah.
And when it, like, that's the big thing. A lot of people think that they don't have to earn the intimacy, especially in our society today. We feel like intimacy is something that you can just go out there and get, which is true. I mean, that's what pornography is about. There's no commitment in pornography. You get, for a lot of people, you view pornography, you masturbate, you have an orgasm, you feel great. It's awesome. You don't have to put in the time and effort to get to know the person. You don't have the to navigate the emotional feelings of giving to another person. It's all about you. Eating junk food is the same way. You go out there, you feel good. You don't have to worry about cooking a meal. You don't have to worry about is it healthy or not. And that's why McDonald's and Burger King and all these places are thriving, because so few people want to put in the commitment that's necessary to maintain their bodies well, and I'm included in that. They don't want to think, okay, well, I'm going to go grocery shopping. I'm going to buy healthy chicken. I'm going to get rid of as much saturated fat as possible. They think, no, I just want what feels good that costs me the least. But anyways, just to move forward a little bit without going in circles, what does intimacy actually look like? So I kind of want to, we've defined it. What does it look like applied to life? What's the good of it and what's the bad of it? So where in what walks of our life do we see intimacy? Where do we see it?
Is this something that you want to answer first, or are you actually directly asking?
Well, this is to everybody, all the people in chat. Where do you guys see intimacy? And like sex obviously requires intimacy, but how do you identify it in your life? Where can you see it?
So repeat the question one more time to make sure I heard it fully.
What does intimacy look like in your life?
What does intimacy look like in my life?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, just in the most general sense, like in my life, I would have to say that intimacy just kind of looks like me sharing with people things that I am personally dealing with, which is something, a degree I share with in Thought Raid already. But just kind of like going through, hey, this is where I'm at, this is what I'm going through, this is my thought processes. That's me being intimate with people, of just like, you now understand me and you know what I'm going through. So it's not like I'm just, everything's perfect and there's no problems in life or whatever. Like, that's not the case. Like, you can see, oh, okay, whatever. So that, I think that's one form of way that I express intimacy. I think that's, at the moment, that's primarily the main way that I do that. Other than that, I guess, is involving people in the stuff that I like to do. I guess that's another form of intimacy too. So like, if I were to involve you in me playing computer games, like that's a little bit more intimate than just me inviting you over to a board game night kind of thing. Like, that's something I expect everyone to enjoy. I don't expect everyone to enjoy the computer games that I like to play. A little bit more risky to share that, having to someone be there and they're like, oh, this is boring. And I'm like, I was like, I thought this was the greatest thing. Like, I think Pro ZD made a great like 7-second video about like when you're sharing something you find funny with someone, and like they get to the funny part of the video and they're not laughing, and he's like, crap. Like, I thought this was great, why are you not laughing? Like,
oh dude, I do that all the time with Ariane. Like, I'll send her memes and I'm like, okay, I sent her 4, I think this one's the funniest one, what is she gonna think? And it's never the one that I think is gonna be the funniest one.
Yeah, when I share my form of humor with people, I guess that's another thing too. Like, that's another way of me being intimate with someone when because like I love things that are stupid, or like not stupid, things that are absurd, or like over the top, or don't make sense. But not everyone finds that funny. Like, some people love cringe humor, some people like dark humor, some people like slapstick, and so like, I feel bad sometimes when I'm with people and they like the hardest one I have with that, like, I'm trying to understand is historical humor. Like, I don't understand historical humor, and I desperately wish to, because I care about the people that love it, but like I myself am like, this is just going right over me.
Yeah. I think for me, when it comes to intimacy, like where I see it in my life, one of the things that comes to mind is when I message somebody just out of the blue, just seeing how they're doing. And it's not, hey, how's your day going? It's legitimate. Like, hey, I was thinking about you, and I just want to let you know that, like, there was somebody recently, and this is kind of cringy now that I'm actually vocalizing it, but I was like, hey man, I was just thinking about you. I just want to let you know that you legit bring a smile to my face. I hope you're doing okay.
Why is that cringy?
Well, just like telling another dude, hey, you bring a smile to my face. I want to wear your skin.
What? Who goes to those lengths in their mind, though, Tim?
Well, the reason why it feels kind of weird is because, normally you get hit with the, oh, thanks, which is reasonable. I know the way that I pursue people normally and the way I message them is very abnormal. Like, I'm very intentional about stuff like that. But it's when they don't respond that hurts the most. And the reason I want to highlight that is because it's almost like I'm trusting a piece of my heart with this person, and I'm just hoping that they'll respond in a loving way, saying, I value what you gave me. That's what the love languages is all about. If you give somebody time, if you're quality time, if you give somebody a gift and you've thought about it, if you do something for somebody that you think they're going to love, if you say something to them that you think is going to be affirming, or if you touch them in a way that you think is going to make them feel comforted. But, sometimes you touch somebody in a way and they're like, you're creepy, Exactly. But words of affirmation and stuff, it's like, okay, I messaged this person, they didn't even respond. Oh man. Okay. And then you have to check yourself, it's that, okay, well, why didn't they give me the intimacy of a response? And I think that's, it really tests your value and how you see yourself. Cause if I feel like I'm valued and I'm giving a little portion of this to this other person, it's like I should be giving from overflow, not giving for validation. But that's why intimacy is so scary, and just transitioning into commitment, and how we see that in our life. That's why it requires the commitment of saying, regardless of the outcome, here's what I choose to give you. And it does take testing. Like, I'm married, and I didn't just get into this relationship with my wife and become married. It was a constant trial. What is it? Try, fail, adjust. I guess maybe it's almost like building a house, or not even build. It's a slow build. You have to build momentum. That's what I'm trying to say. It's not okay. Well, okay, we think we're hot. I think you're hot. Okay, great. We're both hot. Let's get married and let's do stuff. It was like, no. It's like, okay, well, what's your name? Where are you from? You commit to a conversation, right? And if you feel like you want to commit more, you give them some intimacy to kind of reward their commitment, right? But anyways, we'll get there in a second. What does commitment look like in your life?
I was expecting that question. I just wasn't sure if it was going to be asked or not. But I have to say that commitment in my life would look like intentionally inviting people out to go places, to do things. Like, I'm intentionally thinking about playing a game with you. I'm intentionally thinking about going to a park and walking with you. I'm intentionally thinking about getting lunch. That's one form of way that I express both interest and commitment to the person. Another way that I express commitment is, I think, similarly with what you're talking about, just reaching out to people. How are you doing? Talking to them. Just actively thinking about, like, I don't know. This is not something that's like externally obvious, but internally, when I am committed to someone, I also begin to put a portion of my thinking power towards, like, thinking about their lives. Is there any way that I can, benefit them? What kind of thought processes do they have? Can I, is there ways that could be improved upon? Sometimes I'll pray for them. When I'm committed to that person, like, especially the more committed to that person I am, the more likely I am to pray for them.
Mm-hmm.
And then just also making sacrifices, the more committed I am to a person, the more I'm going to be willing to do what they want to do, because I want them to feel valued. So I may not want to do this, but I know they do, so I'm more than willing to do it for them, for their enjoyments. That way, because in the end, if I'm committed to someone, I just enjoy being around that person. So, like, whether I get to do what I want to do or not is not as important. There are points where it does become important, and I've been learning about that. But in general, though, like, if I'm in a really good state of mind, like, we could do a whole bunch of stuff and it wouldn't bother me.
Yeah.
So I think that's the best way I can think of in this moment.
Yeah, commitment to me it's a little bit different, because you said if I like somebody, I'll do something for them, and I think it goes a little bit beyond that, because being married is a completely different beast than what I was aware of in the past. Well, actually, let me draw back a second. My job at GameStop. Uh, there was a stark difference between being a game advisor, which is the entry level position, and being a store leader. There were different levels of commitment and buy-in. And I remember when we wouldn't make our numbers, or when we wouldn't hit our goals or whatever, as a game advisor, I would think to myself, okay, well, that sucks. I'm going home. Bye. And when I was a store leader, I couldn't just go home because I had more stake in it. I had to be more committed, because I had said, okay, well, I sign up to be a store leader. I sign up to receive this salary. Therefore, there's more required of me, whether I like it or not. And marriage is kind of the same way. Like, when I put on this ring and I said, I said, my eyes are only going to be for her. And when I said that, that doesn't mean I'm not going to think about other women, and I'm not going to, like, see other women, because that happens. You can't turn that off. You don't just get married and think to yourself, and all of a sudden you have no attraction to other women, or you don't see them, or you don't have thoughts about it. That happens to every single man. Happens to every single woman too, right? You can't turn off your instincts. But the commitment, since it's a choice, is me saying, I commit to doing this for you even when it's difficult for me.
Yeah.
Right? Because if I was true to what my body wants, right? If I was just giving into the intimacy and just wanting sex, or just wanting emotional fulfillment, I could say, oh, well, we're married. Well, that's cool, and I commit myself to you. But you know what? What's more important is that I fulfill my intimate needs. And if a girl offers herself to me that's not you, and I think she's attractive, I'm going to do it anyways.
No.
That breaks my commitment. Or like when we're having an argument, for instance, as married couples sometimes do, and we're just trying to figure out how to communicate properly, or how to give somebody grace or mercy or whatnot. My commitment is in my vows. I said, I vow to choose you above my circumstances. I vow to put your needs before mine. I vow to always come to a place where I can say, I'm sorry, you matter to me, instead of I matter before you. Right. So my commitment in those moments is, oh, well, I promised you that I wouldn't push my own way when it's not loving.
Yeah.
Which is almost never loving.
Yeah, it's a little bit harder for me at this moment to say all the things that I do as a commitment to people, because at this moment I do not have a spouse, so I don't have that level of commitment to that, or at this moment. I don't have like a traditional
You've
job.
committed to me with this. Like, we're very consistent with this because we came to the table and said we're going to do Thought Raid, and we prayed
True.
about it. God said do it 3 nights a week, and you
So
have been with me 3 nights a week.
if we were to use thought rate as that standard point, I'm committed to making sure and protecting 3 days a week of us broadcasting, taking time to create thumbnails and stuff, and scheduling and posting videos on YouTube. And I'm committed to just working this until it becomes either becomes something, or until God shows me that I need to be focusing on something else, wherever God leads me. But I'm committed to making this become a success. I also have been committed to UGN, so like that's something I've been committed to for 7 years. And come hell or high water, like it's my family, it's my community, so I'm committed to its success. Spending time, like for instance, like yesterday I was going to work on coming up with some highlight points, 4 highlight points, but there was a community member in UGN that needed my attention, and I wanted to give that community member some of my time, so I allotted hours of my time to that person to kind of help them process through what they were going through, because it's my baby. I love UGN. But then, I would say another great example is my commitment to God. My commitment to God is unconditional. Like, it is the greatest commitment of my life. Like, regardless if, it's super easy to follow him or not easy at all, I'm going to do everything within my human ability to follow him, including the reshaping of my mind towards the way that he thinks and what he perceives about what is right and wrong, and portioning out times of my day to spend time talking to him, so that way we're always in communion, and I'm always learning, and I'm always improving myself. Like, that's something that no person on earth is ever going to make me become uncommitted to God, because I've made the decision to commit myself to him fully when I was a teenager, and I was just like, I've seen all there needs to be seen. I am fully committed to you. Let's go. And fortunately, out of that commitment, God's really good with increasing the intimacy. So like, it's not been like this is such a full commitment but nothing coming out of it kind of thing. Not at all.
Yeah, well, that's a good point, and I want to tackle something before we go on, because I was going to talk about the God thing later, but thinking at it from the perspective of what does it look like, and what happens when you only have commitment, and then what happens when you only have intimacy, and when they're out of whack. A lot of people get hurt by religion and legalism when it's full of commitment, and you don't really see the intimate parts of it.
Yeah.
Right. I guarantee that if you are watching this right now, and whether you're on the live stream or if you're watching this as an edited version of the live stream, and you're thinking to yourself, oh, they're talking about Christianity. I hate Christianity. I hate Christians. I hate religion. I've been hurt by, if you've been hurt by religion, that's because you've only seen the commitment side of it, where there's something required of you. Like, you're supposed to do this. You have to do this, especially when that commitment has been superimposed on you by somebody else or something else, like societal expectations, community expectations, cultural expectations, shaming, that's all part of the commitment only side. But on the flip side of things, when you have only intimacy, that's when you also have messed up relationships. That's when you have people that are slaves to things. That's where addiction comes from. It's so much like when I was addicted to Final Fantasy 11, when I was addicted to pornography, it was really easy to go into that place of fulfillment and fun and excitement and endorphins and dopamine, because there was no cost. I remember we were doing we had a homeless ministry we were doing for a while, and we had this little wagon that we would drag behind us, and there were all the, sometimes we would just have water, but sometimes we would go to the store and we would spend our money on stuff to make sandwiches and little bags of chips and whatnot, and our goal was to go out there and give to people who needed stuff and talk to them. And there were times where people would walk up and they would be like legit homeless people, and they would say, you got this? No, you got this? Well, what good are you? And it's like, well, I mean, I'm here to give you something since you have a need, you know? And you have people where if all they do is receive, 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 and they don't do anything for that, they get in this mode of where they can't be grateful,
Yeah.
where they're looking for the next high. That's where drug addictions happen. That's why they call certain drugs entry drugs, and they keep getting harder and harder and harder because it's very little work for a very quick fix.
Yeah.
And sexual relationships are like that too. If I just went out and all I had to do was open up an app, Tinder, Grinder, whatever people use, I don't know. And oh, well, this girl's hot. Let me like her. Oh, okay, she wants to hook up. She comes over to my place. We have sex. I have an orgasm. She goes home. Okay, next person. Next time I'm feeling like, oh, there's no. Okay, well, let me talk to you, as you were saying. There's no commit, and you get in that mind frame of instant gratification, and that's what an intimacy only relationship looks like. And you get lazy and you start taking things for granted. But anyways, I want to talk about DTR. Do you know what that means, Brandon? DTR?
I feel like I might have heard that before, but I do not. Unfortunately, I can't think of what it means.
So there was there was a girl one time, and she invites me to coffee. And when we sit down, she was talking about this guy, and she said, yeah, we message all the time and we do stuff. We hang out, we go to parties frequently. And I'm really confused because he's giving me all the signals that we're in a relationship, but he talks to all these other girls and we're not in a relationship. I was like, that guy sounds like a tool bag. And she was like, oh, that's you. I was like, well, and this was before I learned all this, right? Because I was so used to not putting a label on things and guarding somebody's heart and saying, I'm going to commit myself to you before we have all this intimate stuff. I was spreading, well, this is going to sound worse than it is, but I was spreading my seed all over the place. I was trying to get acknowledgement and fulfillment and affirmation in all these places. I wanted the intimacy, but I wasn't willing to commit to one person because I had allowed hurt to prevent me from doing that. I was thinking to myself, if I don't commit myself and somebody says, I don't want to hang out with you, I don't want to do anything with you, whatever, well, no harm, no foul. Nobody's going to, nobody broke up with me. No, I don't have to change my social status on Facebook or Instagram or whatever. No harm, no foul. There's no commitment, so I can't be hurt. So when we're talking about defining the relationship, that's a really interesting concept. And all it does is give both parties, or if it's you and like a job or you and a commitment that you've made outside of people, a relationship to a place or a thing, like a car, for instance. If you have a commitment and you buy a car, you're committing to taking care of it and putting gas in it and do all that stuff.
Right.
But defining the relationship is just gauging an understanding of, okay, well, where do these two line up? Are we too intimate? Are we too committed? Whatever. So when we had this conversation and she told me that's what I was doing, I was like, oh, I'm being kind of a tool. I am so sorry.
Cat's out of the bag.
Yep. And, the next topic that I wanted to talk about in line with this was what do boundaries have to do with this? let me put that in chat for a second, real quick. What do boundaries have to do with this? Okay, so when you're defining a relationship and you're thinking about boundaries, just to give a real life example, there are things that I can do with my wife that I will not allow myself to do with other women.
Mm-hmm.
And you can use your imagination. I hope that you don't. But
wait,
there are also things that there are just certain things I'm limiting myself to.
Yeah.
Right. So when it comes to boundaries, there are certain things that I'm going to build walls around to let certain things in and keep certain things out. Right. And it's different for all levels of commitment. For instance, I went to the store the other day. There was this lady I was talking to, just a random person. And it was just like, oh, hey, how are you doing? We were just waiting in line somewhere. And then it was like, okay, great. Have a nice day. Thinking about commitment versus intimacy, there was no commitment there. The only commitment we had to each other was just to be a kind human being in passing, right? So for me to take a really high level of intimacy and say, hey, here's all the crap going on in my life, even though you didn't ask, that's not really fair because they didn't ask for that. That if you give somebody that much intimacy, it's like you're expecting them to meet your level of commitment, even though there's no reason for that. There's no like, it's like, why? You know, it's like, it's just like that lady I told you about a while back, where she was asking me for money, and she almost shamed me because I didn't give her money. She was like, "Well, you owe this. I don't owe this to you, and I can give to you generously of my heart if I want to,
right?
But I have no commitment to you. You have to be accountable for your life. If you are a friend of mine or whatever, I might feel a little bit more compelled to help you because that I want to give you the intimacy of friendship, but." You just come up and you have all these expectations. I'm sorry, I'm not going to give you that.
Right.
So, boundaries are good because they keep things out and they, protect what's in there. So for instance, when I'm just thinking, I just keep going back to my marriage. There are certain things that I have to protect and keep within the confines of my commitment to my wife that I'm not going to give to other people.
Right.
And there are certain things like that with you that I'm not going to trust with Joe Schmo, whoever on the street, But what do you think about all this, Brandon?
Well, I think it's really important to have those boundaries, though, because, like, unless, like, a person, for whatever reason, has the ability to godlike be a world of glass and everything is vulnerable and open, which is not, and there's no shame whatsoever, which is not a thing at all. Like, there needs to be boundaries, need to be this far and no further for there to be true intimacy with the person. Because if I were to share something personable with you and then you share with everyone else, like, I'm in that particular area, I've not mentally prepared myself to share it, and not everyone's going to understand it either, because unfortunately they're just people that no matter how well you describe things to them, like, to help them understand your perspective, to help them understand why you did as you did, it's just not going to matter. And so if you're going to just, like, it's just for intimacy to thrive, there has to be some kind of boundaries of, like, okay, is this person committed to me to be able to hold what I'm sharing with them between the two of us? And then if that is the case, then I can continue to be intimate with that person in that manner about those things, because I know it's not going to go everywhere else. And I think there's just parts of our life that are designed to be sacred and holy to ourselves, not shared with other people. And I think, just looking at it, like, if you were to share every single part of yourself with every single person, you're making, it's like think of real world examples. There was a period of time, to my understanding, where products were made better, they lasted longer, they cost more, but they were good quality products. Shoes were made better, clothing was made better, more durable, strong, whatever. Cars were made of freaking metal, and you get in a car wreck and they're barely dented because they're made of metal. Not exactly efficient for maybe fast speeds, but definitely strong, And so people could get into car wrecks with less ramifications for a time. Just things were made a little bit better. Electronics were made better for a time, and they're made nowadays sometimes. And so because the quality was maintained and it wasn't just made into this mass-produced cheap crap, it was something people strive towards. It had greater value to it. It was something that could, if it were personified as a person, it could live with its head held high because it was done right. But then you get into this current era where things are mass-produced, and they've lost their value because they're spread so thin and used with cheap products, and there's just no value to them. Mm-hmm. The same principle applies to the people. If all of who you are is shared with everyone in existence, you're cheapening yourself, you're not valuing yourself. You have made yourself of lesser value because everyone knows that, and there's just no intimate details related to yourself that gives you something over someone else, in a sense. Not to say that we're better than other people, but there's just each one of us have skills that other people do not possess in the same way. So I think there just naturally needs to be boundaries with what we share with who and to what degree, and who gets all of it or who gets some of it. Kind of that needs to be determined. There needs to be boundaries because that enriches the person and their value. And it now I've got the burps. And it's just, I don't know, it helps people recognize this is a safe person. This is a valuable person I want to go to, because I can see that they're not sharing their marital life with everyone in doing all the same things they do in their marriage life. I'm doing with other people as well. So this person is a person of character. This person, I never hear about the people that talk to them, but I personally know there's a lot of people that do, and it never leaves their conversations. I can trust this person. They're valuable. There's boundary stuff. The things that are said, in private are not said publicly, something that I am presently working on and have made a mistake with not too long ago, but we're getting better.
That makes me think about something. I'm going to speak to the gamers, because a lot of the people in our community are gamers. And I was thinking about tournaments and how the ranked system, since I played League of Legends, we're probably going to play some Overwatch after this. Stormy, you were playing Overwatch earlier. When you think about ranked systems in tournaments, you think about the brackets where you have 16 people over here at first, and then the people that win that go, and then you have 8 people in the bracket, then you have 4, then you have 2, then you have 1, and then ultimately you have a winner. Well, the people that put in the work and have the most investment, learning how to do the game well, or like even in golf or whatever, take the time to practice and put in the work to get good at it. Those are the people that win and are invited to the winner's circle. Like if you look at League of Legends, there's something called LCS. It's this high profile tournament, and only people who are accredited and have a contract with the team are invited, right? So basically what that means is if they are committed to a team and they've written, kind of like I have a ring, I'm committed to my wife, there are certain things I'm invited to do and to participate in that other people cannot, right? And even within that, there's another level of intimacy that you get to called the finals or semifinals. So if you don't win that bracket, or if you don't have the level of commitment where you're good enough or have enough investment and you haven't earned it, if you try and walk into the finals and you've lost, they're going to say you don't belong here. Boundary. You don't have the opportunity to fight for the grand prize, which is like a high level of intimacy if you look at the metaphor that way. Right. And I look at my wife as somebody who has gone through the gauntlet of fighting for me, much like I have for her. I've gone through the gauntlet, trial and error, commitment after commitment. There's multiple things that I've committed to her. And, like we had an argument one time, and it was a pretty tough argument. And I could have walked away. She could have walked away. I did something really stupid. And she could have said, because we were just dating, we didn't have the commitment of a ring where it said, we're not going to get divorced. We just have declared that is not something that we're going to put on the table. But back then we were just dating, and she could have said, I'm going to walk away. But, I gave her my heart. I was crying. She was crying. We had all this going on, and she didn't give up on me. She did not give up on me. She said, you hurt me. This sucks. She didn't respond perfectly either. I said, you know what? You've hurt me. This sucks, but I'm going to continue walking through this, chasing your heart and your value and not giving up on you, even though this sucks. Right. And it's because we both have that level of commitment, and we worked through something really hard that we now have the intimacy of marriage, because we saw that the other person was going to trust the value that we put into the relationship, the work, the time, the effort, the intentionality.
Yeah.
So this is a 2-part question. How do you talk about intimacy and commitment in your relationships, and what do you do if they're out of whack? So I'll put that in the chat for you guys. And if you're watching right now, if you're part of the stream, I'd love to hear what you have to think about this. How do you talk about intimacy and commitment in your relationships, and what do you do if they are out of whack?
Well, I think first up, if you're going to be talking about levels of intimacy and commitment with a person, it's a private conversation with them. Because, it's just something between the two of you. I don't know if that needed to be said, but I'm putting it out there. It's a private kind of thing.
You're driving this point home, aren't you, Brandon?
No. But in the actual conversation, there's gonna have to be a level of vulnerability of hey, for instance, I came to the realization towards the beginning of this year that video games was more important to me to be something that a shared experience between those that are closer to me than I realized. And it's not necessarily that we had to play the same games per se, but just knowing that they're as interested in certain things that I also am interested in, we can just sit together and play something, that alone makes me feel comfortable, and makes me feel like, okay, this is, things are going good in this friendship where I'm, it's something that I can really go to another level of commitment and to another level of intimacy. And I had to have conversations. I think you were one of them that I had to have a conversation about, that of just somehow you came through the back door of my understanding of what it could mean to be a good friend and not have video games initially. We both were interested in gaming and stuff, but we never actually played games together. And that just went through the back door of my understanding of how friendship could work. And so I felt that for a long time, but never quite understood that it was important to me until this year. For 6 years, and I finally just realized that. And so I had to have a conversation and be vulnerable with you about that. Hey, essentially, do I bore you? Was the question that I had to ask. Wow. That's kind of how it broke down to is, do I bore you? Are you fine with me just, hanging out and, maybe we're doing two separate things, but it's just the fact that you're there, kind of thing. Is that important to you or not, or whatever? And
Brandon, you were just there when I needed you, and now that I no longer need you, sorry.
No. See, if we weren't committed to being each other's friends like that, though, this whole thing that we're doing right now wouldn't exist. That's even in a friendship, a level of commitment is important, because if you're just being friends with me because I have the latest computer game or whatever, or you're just friends with me because you're going through a rough time, and now that you're not going through a rough time and not so important, that level of commitment and intimacy must be adjusted accordingly.
And I want to jump in and say that I think under normal circumstances, a relationship like ours, where you came into my life right before a really traumatic thing happened, and you were a very vulnerable person too. And back then I wasn't really, but I think you were already vulnerable, and I was in a place where I'd been broken apart, and you were there to intercept, and we didn't really have that superficial. We knew each other. I was working at GameStop and you were a customer, and I kind of knew your face, but we didn't have that superficial build up like I was talking about earlier. It's really dangerous, and it's potentially dangerous when you have relationships where you just jump in and there's lots of intimacy and whatever initially, because that's almost like gambling. When you go to Vegas and you put $1,000 on red, it's like the roulette, where's it going to land? Because there are so many people I could have done this with. And, day 3 when I'm, Brandon, this happened. They could have been like, dude, I don't know you like that. I think it was just really, you and I know why it happened the way it happened, and
Right.
we'll go over that later. But you have to be really careful, because if you're just doing that with everybody, people are going to look at you as being super needy, or as like somebody who just throws their pearls before to the swine. It's like there's nothing sacred about this person.
But that's the thing. Like, that's the thing. Like, I feel like a certain degree of risk is necessary to find that really good fit of a friendship, though. Because if you just entirely play it safe, it's either going to be a very excruciating process to finally getting to the place where you have a really good friendship, or it may never get that chance to take off because you're trying to go through things precept by precept to get there. So like there needs to probably be maybe a little bit of risk, because I feel like that's how I've gotten so many good friends that I have nowadays. It's just my willingness to be vulnerable. It's just figuring out those places where you need to tailor it back, and maybe it's just recognizing when your people meter is full and you don't have the space to take on as many close friends. So then you want to scale back how much you're willing to be vulnerable with individual people, so that way you're not giving mixed signals to those around you, kind of thing.
And then you get asked to a coffee shop to define the relationship.
Right. And going back to that question, though, of like, how do you talk about intimacy and commitment with your relationships? That first part of it is like, you gotta have to set apart a time to talk to them directly about like, hey, like, if you felt like this is going to be a great relationship and there are bumps in the road, you can't ignore the bumps in the roads. They need to be addressed. And so for the commitment to advance and the intimacy to advance, that issue, because the problem is, if it doesn't get addressed, then you may have a higher degree of commitment than they do, and you won't know it, and then you'll constantly feel the lack of intimacy, and it'll make you bitter, because it's like, I'm putting in all this time and this person is not sharing anything with me, and so then it's just not healthy. Or if you're giving like loads of intimacy but not enough commitment, and they're not having that conversation with you, you keep believing that that's an okay thing, you can end up dragging them and hurting people in the process. And so in that case, that person would probably need to confront the man or woman being overly intimate and not very committed. Like, and I guess it's dependent also. Like, if you're just a random passerby and then someone just starts barfing out all these things on you, like, it's like, and that, I guess, in the instance, can just like walk away. Like, hey, excuse me, I don't know you. I appreciate that you want to share these things with me. However, I don't know you. I don't think this is appropriate. Please stop. Kind of thing. But that's more like if you never knew them in the first place, and all of a sudden there they came, and it's like, whoa, hold up. Because I've been thinking about that. Like, I've been like thinking about my future approaches for the next time someone comes to me for money off the street. I'm like, hey, would you be able to give me I feel like it'd be, I don't know if this is too much, but my current plan is to be like, hey, I get that you may be in a bind, but please understand I don't know you. And so I'm sorry, I wish I could help, but like, because otherwise I run the risk of lying to them. And I don't want to lie to people, but at the same time, I'm not going to just give you money because you're asking for money. Like, who are you?
So I want to take that and transition to the last part, because we're running a little bit late.
Okay.
But I want to highlight the fact that you said that it takes risk.
Yeah.
When you're starting to be known by somebody, you have to risk little bits at a time. Kind of like when we first moved into this house, we didn't just buy everything at once. It was a slow progression. People get to where they're at in life. And you look at them on social media and it looks like they're a perfect person. Well, you don't see what they've gone through. You don't see how they've built up who they are. So how do you talk about intimacy and commitment in your relationships? And what do you do if they're out of whack? So you have to risk little bits at a time and say, hey, I want to talk about this. How do you feel about this? And if somebody meets you where they're at, great. Continue onward, risk a little bit more, and just keep going, and give yourself the time to develop that relationship. Because if somebody asks, for instance, I'll throw a relationship out there. There's a girl who is dating this guy. And every time she says, hey, I want to talk about this, I want to talk about this, he threatens to leave. So she feels like it's her duty to give him sex. And so whenever he doesn't meet her with a level of commitment, she feels like, oh, well, my value's on the line, so I have to protect this, and I can't risk who I'm at. I can't risk, losing this role, whatever. So I'm just going to give him the sex every time I have an issue, and that way I'll feel fulfilled, right? So like, what do you do if they're out of whack?
If they're out of whack, there's boundaries are going to have to be enforced.
You also have to pull back.
Yeah, boundaries enforced, and things have to be scaled back accordingly, respectively, probably on both ends, both in intimacy and in commitment. The only tricky part is when it comes to marriage specifically, because you can't just like, well, we're not able to talk about this, so I'm gonna just not be as committed to you. Like, that's not, for the most part, unless for whatever reason there's kind of abuse, or there's a lot of like cheating going on. Like that's I don't know. I have not been in that situation, so I can't really speak clearly, but I know those would probably be situations where you would want to reevaluate. But if there's just a bad conversation, it's not like, well, this conversation, we can't talk about it, so I'm just gonna not be as committed to you. Why did you get married in the first place? For great times only?
Well, when you think about writing a contract, right? If we all, Facebook, iTunes, whatever, that little box that pops up that says, do you agree to these terms? Nobody reads them, of course. You just click yes. When it comes to building a relationship and evaluating your level of commitment and intimacy, it's little checkpoints where you say, okay, well, here's what I want you to agree to, or here's what I want us to agree to. Are we going to? And when you have a level of commitment that you've reached, that your level of commitment is equal to how you can hold them accountable, right? So if somebody has said, yes, I commit to this, or yes, and talking specifically about marriage, if you marry somebody, basically that commitment says, I'm going to weather the storm with you, whether things are awesome or they suck. And so it's, if somebody is being unfaithful in a marriage, or if they're spending money the wrong way, it is absolutely reasonable to come and say, hey, you're not holding up your part of the deal here. But what do you do if this stuff is out of whack? And I was thinking earlier about how we were talking about our friend group here at Roots, and back in the day, there were like a good 30 or 40 people within our network, right?
Yeah.
And brother, I cast a wide net. And when I say a wide net, I was putting stuff on social media. I was inviting everybody to everything. And I was like, who is going to stick? I'm going to give everybody the same level of intimacy. Dude. And then, I had a few people hit me with the DTR that define the relationship. And it's like, okay. I need to actually choose who I give myself to. Right. And then, what do you do if your intimacy and commitment are out of whack? You just have to be honest with yourself. What am I actually capable of? What are my limits, right? Everybody, especially if you don't know what healthy relationships look like, you think you can spread yourself to everybody, and you can't. Right? There are so many people that think that they have people pleasing. You have to be everything to everybody. You have to give to everybody. If you think about the homeless, I want to help homeless people. I want to help people that are in need, right? But what are my limitations? And where's my heart? What am I committed to? I'm committed to serving God. I'm committed to helping people. But what do I do if I'm in a situation where the level of expectation exceeds my level of commitment? Like, I want to give to you, but I don't want to do it because you tell me I have to. That's completely different, right? So what do you do if they're out of whack? Be honest with yourself about what you can actually do. When I was evaluating this for me, intimacy and commitment, and how they correlate, I had to ask myself, okay, well, how many people can I realistically spend time with and it have value? How many people can I honestly have these deep conversations with and it means something?
Yeah.
And to kind of put it in perspective, there are these little action figures called Amiibo. And when they first came out and they were extremely rare, the value of them
Yeah.
You know, you could buy them for $13 in stores, and online they were $150. They were worth a lot more because they were less plentiful, right? But now that they're out there and everybody's got them, I can't get rid of them even for $5 a piece. The value plummeted, right? So think about that when it comes to your value and the level of intimacy that you grant other people with you, or that you're taking from other people.
Right.
It's not really like, think about sex. Think about people who sleep around all the time. It's not worth anything. It's not worth anything. Sex with that person is not worth anything because 50 other people are getting it too, and it's meant for one person. And I say it's meant for one person because it is one of the most personal and private things you can give another person, right? And then you get tricked into thinking, oh well, it doesn't have any value. Well, then what does have value? And you start realizing that relationships aren't worth it when you realize that you don't really have anything of value like that. And then you start thinking, okay, well, if relationships aren't worth it and everybody's just out to get something from me, then I'm just going to keep to myself because nobody's going to value me. Nobody's going to protect me. Nobody's going to protect my heart. Right. So I want to get into my last point or talking point, which was relating to God. How does all this influence our relationship with God as well as our personal relationships? And this is a really big topic because I think it's a topic that is often misunderstood. Intimacy in a relationship. A lot of people, and I want to slow down as I say this, because there are a lot of people that have allowed themselves to be hurt by what they think God is or who they think God is. And they quantify who God is by how other people model him. They quantify who God is by how other people have responded to him in relation to just the intimate side. Like they want all the good stuff that comes with having a relationship with God without the commitment, right? And that's what it looks like when you see Christians on the side of the street protesting at a gay rights thing, saying you guys are going to hell. They want to protect the security of thinking, oh, well, God loves me, but not you, instead of going through the difficult part of allowing people to go through their own process with God, right? And they think, oh, well, God is a judgmental God. Well, he is capable of judgment, but he loves first. Yeah. That's why, John 3:16 is a thing. That's why 1 Corinthians 13 is a thing. So how does commitment and intimacy relate to your relationship with God? Well, the more you are committed to him, the more intimacy he allows you to have with him, right? And that sounds like an empty statement to make to a lot of people because they don't really know what that looks like. But when you take a step towards God, he takes 2 steps towards you. And the way that I can relate that in my life is by allowing myself to say, hey, I have messed up poorly in this area and put my pride on the cross. Dude, there are 50 people off the top of my head, that's just a hyperbolic number, in my phone that I could message right now and say, hey, I need help. And they're there. That they know what my heart looks like. And so they can trust that if they ever need anything, I'm going to be there. Right. And I only got there because God said, in the Bible, it says a brother is born in adversity. And there's been so many people in my life as I've gone through over time through things where I have been there for people and they've been there for me. And we keep like building that level of commitment with one another. Right. And with God, it's one of those situations where I have to risk something with him. I have to risk being vulnerable. I have to risk saying, God, are you actually there? God, do you actually care about me? I have to risk saying, God, I'm going to start looking for you in everything, my finances, my weaknesses. I'm going to start looking for you in all the little like serendipities, like freaking chipmunks that come and see me on my porch every morning. Yeah. And I have to start risking thinking, okay, God, is this you? God, is this you? God, is this you? Yeah. And with that, he introduces me to levels of intimacy that other people don't understand just because they haven't gone through the steps of commitment to earn commitment.
That. Yeah. I think that John Bevere, he's a Christian author and pastor. I think he put this well, and I'm not even gonna try to quote what he said, but I'm going to give you pretty much what he was saying through what I was reading, which was, God is not going to share all of himself with you until you first make that commitment, kind of thing, because oftentimes you're not even going to really even know, is it worth it sometimes before he starts showing parts of himself. I think he intentionally hides himself enough that you have to take a risk in order to start to get to know him. Because I think what John was talking about was that the time frame of which he came to know Christ, his understanding of God at that point was, if I'm going to sacrifice my time and I'm going to give my life to God, it's going to be miserable. I'm going to have to, go through a lot of pain and suffering and not going to do what I want to do. It's just going to be absolutely this miserable experience. But that's the time where he decided he was going to, despite it all, he was going to commit himself to God, because he decided that God was worth it. And even though there were plenty of other things in his life at that time that could suggest that God wasn't there and didn't exist, he decided to make the risky and ballsy move to believe that he did exist. And since he did that, he began to realize that a lot of his worries and concerns pertaining to God were unfounded. But God revealed that to him and chose to reveal that to him after he decided to take the first step of being committed to God in the first place. The reality is that God is love, and he's infinite, and he is absolutely worth every minute of your time if you're so willing to give it to him. But he's not going to just throw all of his infinite wisdom and all of his love just right on you until you've started to make that first commitment, where it may look like there is no God. It may look like everyone in the Christian church is just pathetic and hypocritical. Why would I even bother going into that, considering all? He will allow you. God is not insecure. If you choose to never believe in him, it does not make him think any less of himself. It does not diminish his existence because you do not wish to believe that there is something greater than yourself, greater than what you can see and hear and sense. It doesn't bother him. But if you do decide to take a risk and you do decide to believe maybe there is someone out there who took all of the world, and think about it. If you follow evolution, all that is right now, all the things that we can see and touch and hear and smell, all that stuff, a lot of it had to be determined within picoseconds of the beginning of the universe. If it didn't form correctly, we wouldn't have planets, stars, livable space. Life would not exist. Everything in existence is so finely tuned for there not to be a God. It didn't just happen random stance. If you choose to believe that there is a God, you choose to take that step and recognize that by yourself you won't be able to get to that place of love for other people, of in a way that's true and genuine, to get to that place of peace in chaotic situations where there's a whole pandemic going on, but you're not afraid. If you want to get to those places, if you're willing to recognize your own shortcomings and take a risk and be like, okay, I'm going to believe that there is a God, then you'll begin to find over time just how real God is, and he will reveal himself to you and show you all the different areas of serendipity in your life that was actually him. It wasn't just random happenstance. But it takes that first risk of choosing to be committed before you see what all there is. Because I came in believing, similarly to John Bevere, that life was going to be really tough to be a Christian, because I grew up in a Christian household, so I heard a lot about the missionaries over in Africa or different place, or in China with all the persecution that goes on in China. And I was aware of the crumbling state of America and how close we could be to persecution in our own country, and so in my mind, it was like becoming a Christian suggested essentially death to myself in all forms. And I was not going to be able to even enjoy video games, because forget that, because if you're going to follow God, you can't do video games. That was my present understanding of God when I decided to be committed to him. And now I've come to find out, like, okay, God can use video games, and God has the ability to protect us, and even if we don't exactly avoid persecution, he's still with us and empowers us through it. All that began with the decision to be committed to God first, and the rest was revealed, and it is so worth it. You got to imagine, he is love, and he is the God of the entire universe. So the things that he will reveal to you, the intimacy that he will share with you, if you are willing to believe that he exists, it's not something that you'll be able to find in another person, and it's not something you'll be able to read in a book, and it's not something that you can just test within the universe to see if it exists or not. Like, it's so mind-boggling. And I want to kind of encourage you, if you've not made that decision, to believe that there is a God and to accept Christ as your savior. But I'm gonna step down off of my soapbox here now.
Yeah, and I'm just gonna make one statement. We can wrap it up. I just want to say that when it comes to all this, you might feel like a lot of people are watching, and a lot of people are expecting you to do something. Like, I know that I've talked to a lot of people that think, oh, well, Christians are just, they have this expectation that I'm going to follow their God. And yeah, insecure Christians will. People who don't really know God will, because they wonder themselves, man, is God really real? I guess if I can convince all these other people that God's real, and if I can convince all these other, if you become a Christian, then he must be real. I just need to get enough people to believe. That way I want you to understand that a lot of people that act that way also look at their relationship with God as a commitment without intimacy. And, they think to themselves, okay, well, this is the only way it can be. Nobody truly is looking at you. Nobody truly is expecting you to do anything a certain way. And Brandon was talking about making a commitment to God. I think that is really important. But I think even before that, just treat it like you treat any other relationship that would possibly one day have value. Because you don't just jump into a relationship with somebody saying, hey, let's do this thing. The belief doesn't start there. When I first started dating my wife, I didn't have full belief that she was going to say yes to me the day that I proposed to her. It was a slow process of testing my worth against how she wanted to commit to me. Right? And when it comes to God, that's really what happened with me too. I didn't just jump in saying, all right, God, let's go. I choose to believe in you. It was one of those things where it's like, how there's in movies sometimes that guy that's running around and he's just like, help, help, help. And everybody's ignoring him, and then there's that, and it's always like so poetic in movies, but there's always that one person, typically a female, that notices him and she's like, how can I help? That's kind of how God is too. If you just go out there and just start being open about what you're going through and just saying, hey, God, if you are there, show yourself to me. I need help. Or I'm feeling this way. God, I don't feel loved. I feel small. I feel insignificant. I feel like people hate me. I feel hurt. I'm at my wit's end. I don't know where to turn. God, if you are there, please show me something. Show me that my value matters to you. That's honestly how I found Brandon. There are so many people that, through my 20s, that just walked by. I must have walked by 10, 20, 30, 100,000 people in my 20s before I got to Brandon. But it was so weird. Like, when I walked past him, there was just something in me that wanted to take a risk and communicate, hey, I want to get to know you.
Yeah, you preemptively did that.
Yeah, and he accepted my invitation. right? And when we accepted that invitation, it was personally, I don't think I've ever told you this, Brandon, but initially I was kind of nervous. I didn't know what to expect from you. I didn't know if you were actually going to value me as a friend. I didn't know if you were going to be weird and I would think that you're strange or something. I had no clue what to expect. And then the first time we got together, for honestly, I think the first couple times you bought me a meal or something, and then I felt like I had to buy you a meal for this relationship to work. And quickly you dissolved that and you said, no, you don't have to buy me. You don't have to, I want to bless you with the meal if I want to bless you with the meal. You don't have to pay me back.
Right.
That is exactly how my relationship with God began.
Yeah.
I had to just be open to it first and say, hey, you might be awesome. You might suck. I don't really know, but God, if you're there, I'm open to giving this a shot. And when I did that and I started like putting myself out there and risking, he started showing me more intimacy, saying, hey, I am going to bless you. And that he blessed me in so many different, like one specific way where that always comes to mind is I was up at 4 a.m. and I was just like having a really tough time, and just out of nowhere, Brandon messages me, hey, I just woke up. I felt like God wanted me to tell you this. And Brandon sent me something that was absolutely pertinent and hit the nail on the head for what I needed to hear right then. And I was like, so God took time to pay attention to what was going on in here because I was trying to speak to him. And he woke Brandon up at 4 o'clock in the middle of the night saying, hey, Brandon, here's exactly what I want you to say to Tim.
Yep.
And I had to risk saying, is this really God? And when I acknowledged and said, God, okay, I see that you did this. Dude, okay, well, here's some more of me. I'm going to commit a little bit more belief to you. I'm going to commit a little bit more faith to you. And dude, like, I got a $10,000 Mini Cooper that I didn't pay for sitting in my driveway because God said, I love you. Let me bless you as a father and pay you back for something I want to bless you with this level of intimacy and love because you made the commitment to do something, even though it didn't seem like it was going to have a payoff in the beginning. And I won't talk about that, but it's just like the level of intimacy goes up in direct correlation with what you're willing to commit. And I just want to let you know, nobody's watching. And you don't have to start big. You just have to start small and say, hey, here's what I'm willing to commit. Here's what I'm willing to give. Here's what I'm willing to risk.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, take that risk, but do take that risk and because God rewards that. And
we're watching.
Yeah. Yeah. And I want wait, no. Wait, no.
Brandon's like, yeah, we're watching.
I don't unfortunately have the time to do that, even if I wanted to. But what I was going to say is that when it comes to like asking God to do things for you, though, just to kind of like share with you who God is, I think it's best to ask God, like, show me how much you love me, personal things, like, help me understand this concept or things of that nature. But if you ask God, like, give me this, like, he's not a genie. Like, I don't want to just start you off on the wrong foot. He's not a genie. He does like to give people gifts, but that usually comes out of, we're not expecting the gifts to happen. The moment when we genuinely are not expecting that to happen is usually when it actually does. Sometimes God does things that we're expecting to do, but oftentimes he will honestly do things contrary to where we're looking for it. So I think it just kind of open a broad door to him. Or when I say broad, I don't mean like you have to like just jump right in all cold, whatever. But I'm saying like, like when with the expectation of how he's going to get back to you, it's just, it may be different than what you're expecting, but that's okay.
Yeah. And it'll take time. It kind of like using the analogy that we talked about earlier. Just because you've bought God dinner and you took him out on a date and you got him flowers doesn't mean he's going to sleep with you that night.
Oh, God.
I know that's a really weird
I know.
metaphor, but a lot of guys and a lot of people jump into the relationship saying, well, I've jumped through the hoops. I've done this, therefore God, you must do this.
Yeah.
Relationships aren't like that. You have to allow him the freedom to be who he's going to be as well. If he's going to allow you who you're going to be, because man, there are so many times where I tell God no, I straight up no. God, you want no? Oh, you're at no. God, sorry, brother. I don't feel like it today. And he allows me that freedom and doesn't stop loving me. And so if he doesn't respond the way that I expect him to, it's like, well, how committed am I? What if my wife just stopped like hugging me? What if she stopped like wanting to spend time with me? It's like that's tough. I have to. I don't know. That's a horrible. Anyways.
No, it makes an interesting point though, because that has to do with commitment. Are you still willing to be committed to someone when they go through hard times and they can't give you what you're needing in the moment? Like God experience, like we get angry with God. Why could God not do this? Why did God do this? Whatever. But I don't think we really think about like, how is this affecting God indirectly? Like the amount of times that God has been told no, from other people, and he's put up with it and not just smote the person immediately for denying him. That's a great testament to God's patience and his love. It's like, he gets told no by billions of people all the time and still loves them and still holds out for them and stuff. How much more can we do the same thing, for others who are going through a hard time too? That's what commitment looks like. It's just because you tell me no does not mean I'm done. That does not mean like you don't love me anymore. Like that's not how it works. So I think that's a good point to bring up to kind of put a bow on all this. Is there anything else you want to bring up before we close it, or do you think you got it good? Or
yeah, I think we're good for the.
All right.
Oh, you were supposed to transition. That would have been so perfect.
One more time. Well, I want to thank you guys for watching tonight. It's been a lot of fun. We broadcast every week, Mondays, Fridays, and Saturdays at 7 p.m. So tomorrow we'll be broadcasting again at 7. We'll be playing a game, and we want to invite you personally to join us in the comments and stuff to talk with us. Any kind of questions you have. Saturdays is a time to have fun and talk about whatever you guys are personally wanting to know about, to talk about whatever is on your mind. Bring your questions. We love to talk about it. If this video's meant a lot to you, make sure to like it and to share it. And to subscribe to us on YouTube, because we want to get this stuff out to other people so they could be just as blessed as you've been. So we would love for you to be able to join us with this by subscribing and sharing it to other people. But otherwise, I want to thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you again this Saturday, tomorrow at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You guys have a good night.
Woo!